The world needs what you've got. The world needs it. You were created for a reason, for a purpose. There's a reason you were born right here, right now, for such a time as this. There's people that need what you have. There are people only you can reach. There are people only I can reach, people only Blake can reach. And we each kind of have our own little world. And it's our responsibility to leave a footprint, to make an impact on our world. I want to live my life knowing I changed my world.
Welcome to Direct Selling Shift, an exclusive podcast by DSN. I'm your host, Blake Mallon, and this is where direct selling high performers and experts share their most powerful shifts in mindset, skill set, and strategy to help you accelerate your business and amplify your impact. I challenge you to be present, open your mind, and let the shift begin. Welcome to Direct Selling Shift. I'm your host, Blake Mallon. Super inspiring guest on the show today. I think you're going to find her story an absolute testament to the power of determination and just resilience from being a stay-at-home mom, feeling like her family was paycheck to paycheck, to discovering the direct sales industry, scrolling one day on social media. She's gone on to climb the ranks of her company, actually hitting the highest position, not once, but 2 times. Can't wait to hear that story. And becoming a global top income earner for 9 years. And in January of this year, she actually made the strategic shift to help support the corporate side of her company, now as the head of field and strategy, where her perspective coming from the field is helping bridge the gap between vision and execution. She's a published author. You'll find she brings a very faith-based perspective to how she just shows up both in her business and in her life. In her words, her life philosophy is really about a mission to help as many people in this channel get the opportunity that she feels she has been given. I have a feeling this is going to be a super enlightening conversation, one that will leave a lasting impression. Please help me welcome to the show none other than SheriLynn Alcala. Hey, SheriLynn, how are you?
I am doing good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. So you're coming to us live from where?
I am from Frisco, Texas, so the North Dallas area.
I love it. Well, thank you for the time today with everything you have going on right now. I know both you and your spouse have been super busy, and I can't wait to get in to what's happening in your world. But let's rewind real quick. So you're scrolling on social media one day, just like literally going from checking your reels or your TikToks or your Instagram. Tell us about that moment and a little bit about your story of how you went from a social media post to changing the trajectory of your whole life.
Yeah. Well, it almost started maybe a month before that, Blake, before I was scrolling. And I remember going to my husband, and at the time, my daughters, they were 1 and 2 years old. And my 2-year-old, I really wanted to put her in a dance class. I grew up as a dancer, danced in college, and I couldn't wait for my daughters to be dancers. I won't mention that now that daughter's like a basketball player and a club volleyball player, wanted nothing to do with dance. But at the time, that was my dream. And I told my husband I wanted to put her in dance. And I'll never forget him saying, SheriLynn, what envelope is that going to come from? Because we did the Dave Ramsey envelope system. And, we did what a lot of people do, went to college, got our degrees, got married, started having kids. And then we quickly found ourselves kind of on that hamster wheel of life. And I'll just never forget him saying, what envelope? And that was the moment I realized, wow, we don't have an extra $80 a month. We didn't have that. And so I actually remember like it was yesterday praying in my car, Lord, show me a way to make extra income. There's got to be something I can do. I'm home with these 2 babies. It doesn't make sense for me to go get a job and the cost of daycare. And it wasn't long after that, an acquaintance I went to school with was posting about this opportunity, about products. And I remember being intrigued. I then remember almost unfollowing her. I wondered if it was a scam. I was skeptical, but then I messaged her and I thought, I have got to find out more. And man, those 5 seconds of courage I had to send her a message beyond changed our life.
So you reached out. So you're one of those individuals
I messaged her,
saw something and you're like, you're actually sending the DM of what is this, is this about? I love it.
Uh-huh. almost unfollowed her, but then instead got up in her DMs after stalking her page. Yes, that's what I did. And I do want to call this out. Like, I actually messaged her about the product she was sharing. And it was in our conversation. I was interested in the business. She offered me the business. So for those listening, don't ever be scared. If someone comes to you, you don't know what that person is, you know, their life is like. You don't know what they're walking through. And so, yeah, she offered me the business opportunity. I thought, why not? Why not?
And it goes back to the basics of you just never know who's watching your posts and your content, and when that one post in that day on that moment is going to fall right at the right time with the right person and change everything. I love those stories. Let me back up because I'm familiar with Dave Ramsey, obviously, but I'm not familiar with the envelope system. So just educate me and maybe those of us out here that don't know literally what that means. What is that?
Yeah. Well, I am married to a math major, and he traded stocks before shifting to the corporate side. And so the envelope system meant we did everything with cash, and we would take what we made a month and we would divide it into envelopes. Your house payment, your car payment, your groceries, literally everything had an envelope, which meant and so when he would get paid, he would pull out actual cash and put it in these envelopes. And my little like $20, I think mine was $20 every 2 weeks spending. Like we were tight. We were super tight the way we were living. And we didn't have debt, but there was no extra. And so me putting my daughter in dance class would have meant probably taking money from the electricity envelope. So that's what we did. And that's how we lived until I stumbled upon direct sales.
You know, it's so interesting. So an $80, dance class for your daughter.
That was my why. My why, $80.
That's crazy. And the realization that, wow, you didn't have it, you needed to do something. I'm just curious now, as a leader in this space, obviously you have a movement behind you. Do you find similarities in the stories that you hear in your team that sometimes it just comes down to like a realization moment or some sort of defining moment? I'm just curious if you've heard or found similarities in the stories that you're inspiring today.
I'll tell you what, every person I've talked to in the 10 years of me building in the field, the ones that were super successful had a very clear why. They had a very clear reason that was motivating them, that was pushing them. They wanted change. And my why started out as $80. And then I thought, well, what if I could actually go to Starbucks and Target? And because that was not something I did. I mean, I remember being at the checkout counter and taking things off of the checkout counter because I was watching the total add up and taking things off. And, oh, actually, I don't need this. And going to lunch with friends and saying I had eaten before. I already ate. I'm just coming to get an iced tea and to hang out because we didn't have the extra. And every person I've talked to, when they have the people that go to the top of these companies, they have a reason why. They have something pushing them. And my $80 changed to Target and Starbucks money. Then I remember asking my husband, what's our mortgage? And, and having bigger why. So your why evolves. That first reason you join is going to change and it's going to evolve, but you have to have that. And I believe everyone that's successful really in life has a reason why they're doing what they're doing.
And I love that you said it can start small, right? I mean, it can start with just that moment and that realization. In this case, right, the $80, right, for a dance class and grow from there. But it's that awareness and that realization that, you know what, the path you're on isn't working and you need to do something different. So super inspiring story. And, so you were a stay-at-home mom at that time. So you weren't working, you were staying home with your two littles. I'm curious because obviously this channel, the majority statistically is women, right? And I love hearing the enthusiasm, right? Especially from someone that was a stay-at-home mom at the time. Was there any part of you that was craving more, that wanted to do something for yourself in that scenario? That's like, maybe you can have your own envelope, to make that leap, or any sort of fear or hesitation? Because obviously raising two littles in that season, it's a lot. I mean, that's a full-time thing in itself. So I'm curious, just from the kind of new mom perspective, what made you make that leap? Was it a desire for yourself? Was there hesitation? What was going through your mind?
I think that obviously there was the huge financial need, but then there was also that me looking for a purpose, me wanting to be a part of something bigger than myself. I think really deep down, everyone wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And I think as women especially, moms especially, we have these dreams and then life happens. Maybe you get married, you start having kids, or maybe you're working a full-time job, plus you're the taxi cab Uber driver. I get it. I've got a 10-year-old, a 10 and a half year old, a 12-year-old, two daughters, and then a 5-year-old little boy.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I get the whole thing. Mom of three here. But I think oftentimes we have these dreams and we push them to the back burner. And I think it's like my stovetop. I think that when you're cooking, you typically have that favorite burner you use. Mine's the front left, and then maybe the right. But everyone's got that favorite burner. But then you've got the one in the back that you never use. And I really feel like as women, as moms, we oftentimes push the dream back there. Those things that once made you excited, those dreams you had, those desires in your heart, we push them to the back burner. And I really think that we have to wake up and say, no, I'm going to pull that dream back to the forefront. The time is now. I was created on purpose for a purpose. And I do think, Blake, we shove those back. And for me, mine was wanting to be a part of something bigger than myself. I've always loved cheering on other women. I've always loved being involved in women's ministry, whether it was church or volunteering with Junior League. I loved just being around women, building them up. Like I love sisterhood. And so, yeah, I was searching for more. I was searching for a community. I was searching to be part of something.
I want to go deeper there because I feel like what you're saying is going to resonate obviously with a lot of moms, but I don't think it's just a female thing, right? I mean, I'm a dad of two. My son just turned 8 this past week or so. My daughter's 5, and the dad guilt's real too. And I think it's even beyond parents. I'm curious your perspective, just more, from a leadership point of view of why do you think that's the case? Why do you think it's so hard for so many of us to put our own aspirations, our own desires, our own ambitions on the priority list? And why do you think we get stuck just like giving until all of a sudden we've almost forgot what it is that's calling us? I'm just curious your personal perspective on that. Like, how do we get here?
I think that we're always looking for the right time. I think we tell ourselves when things slow down, when the kids get older, when life is left busy, and we're all tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. And then that tomorrow never comes. And I think we have to say, you know what? The time is now. I know for me, from the moment I had my first daughter, who's now 12, nothing has slowed down. It's probably gotten crazier. So I could keep looking for the perfect time, or I could say the perfect time is right now, just right now. You just have to start. And I think that whether you're right, Blake, whether you're a dad or a mom or you're single or you're married, there's always just going to be the chaos of life, which honestly is kind of a beautiful thing, really, when you think about it. And you just have to say, I've got those dreams in my heart. I'm going to start now. There's that thing I've always wanted to do right now. Let's do it. Like start the marathon, write the book, start the blog, start the business, start going to the gym, whatever that thing is that you keep saying tomorrow. I think you just have to say, I'm going to take the first step. And really the first step's the hardest. And I think of it like a race, and you hear the gun shoot and it's time to run. And which, disclaimer, I haven't ran since I used to run track and field when I was 16. I'm now almost 40. So there was a long time ago that I was running. My husband will listen to this and be like, when's the last time you ran a race? Okay, when I was 16. But you take the first step and you kind of slow and you might be a little wobbly, but then eventually you catch your stride. And I would encourage anyone listening, whatever that thing is, you probably know what that thing is. Just say, I'm going to start right now. I'm going to take that first step.
I think that's so perfectly put, because that when then game we all play, right? It doesn't matter who you are, where we're at in our journey. If you just got started in your business last week, or you're a 10-year top income earner across the globe like SheriLynn, we all play that game of like, well, when this happens, then I'll do this. When that happens, then I'll do this. But I love the way you highlighted, like, that game is never ending. And if you play that game for too long, you run out of when thens and you realize, man, I never took that first step. So SheriLynn, I love it, right? We all can take a first step in a direction that's calling us there. Maybe one more question down, down this lane, just because I'm curious your belief system around it. Because sometimes we give ourselves guilt, especially achievers. And I know a lot of people that are listening to this show, probably have a common theme of we're achievers, we're producers, right? We're ambitious. And sometimes that mindset, we are the hardest on ourselves, and we give ourselves guilt, right? For putting our own needs, our own ambitions at the top of a pile when there's always so many others that we can't help. What's your personal belief system on what it takes to maybe get out of guilt, to get out of the feeling of, oh, that's selfish, to say, you know what, your dreams, your goals, your ambitions, your desire, your calling is a priority. You should take that first step right now. What dialogue goes on in your own mind to help you make that first step?
I would say that the world needs what you've got. The world needs it. I believe the Lord put those talents inside of you for a reason. You were created for a reason, for a purpose. There's a reason you were born right here, right now, for such a time as this. And if you're struggling with guilt, I would say, no, don't have guilt because you want to go after the things that are on your heart. You need to have guilt because there's people that need what you have. There are people only you can reach. There are people only I can reach, people only Blake can reach. And we each kind of have our own little world. And it's our responsibility to leave a footprint, to make an impact on our world. I want to live my life knowing I changed my world. I was faithful with what the Lord put in my hands, and I used those gifts, and I lived out my purpose. And so I would tell you, if you're going to have guilt about anything, you need to have guilt saying, I can't live a life not using my gifts, not using my talents, not using those things that were placed inside of me.
I love that. I mean, that's a huge mindset shift, right? Instead of thinking that it's selfish to put your dreams on the top of the list, your callings on the top of the list, it's actually selfish to not use the gifts and the talents you've been given for a greater cause. Like, that is a huge shift. So if you're out there and there's a direction, you have that calling, but you keep putting everybody and everything on top of the to-do list every day, and you're not getting to that thing you need to, there's a shift that SheriLynn just gave you. That is the most selfless thing you can do, is to use your gifts to go make an impact. SheriLynn, I know a little bit about your story, and I know you have a unique perspective on how you approach, let's just call them challenges, right, and struggles. And I think, based on the little bit I have heard, that maybe that resilience mindset comes from some of the things you had to overcome growing up. And if you're willing to go there and maybe share, can you share with us maybe some of the challenges, the struggles that you were faced with, right, growing up, and how that mindset has maybe helped support you and your business and everything you're doing within your team and your company right now?
Absolutely. So I am a firm believer that your setbacks, those right there, become your greatest setups in life. And so for me, I was diagnosed with learning disabilities at a really young age. I actually had a brother. He was 2 years older than me. And I very early on realized there was something different about us. He was reading at 2 years younger than I was. I would look at books, I would look at pages, and the words just jumbled together. And, I'm so thankful now they've come a long ways of detecting these things earlier on, but I was 10 years old, Blake, and I still couldn't read. And all they knew back then was to keep holding me back in grades. And I was like, oh my gosh. And, I talked nonstop, had a great vocabulary. I still talk nonstop, never shut up, but I couldn't read, and I struggled in dyslexia and other things. And so I hated that. That was what I hated. I always felt different. I always felt not smart. I felt dumb. I felt, insecure. But later I realized that those setbacks actually set me up to create the person I am today. Those setbacks made me who I am today. And I'm actually now, at almost 40 years old, thankful for those things, because my learning disabilities gave me a work ethic that's unmatched. There's no way I would have done the things I've done now had I not learned to overcompensate, to work extra hard. I knew I would never go in a room and be the most academically smart person. I'm not going to have an academic edge on probably anyone. That's okay, but I could work harder than them. And really, those are the things that I ended up going to college, and I graduated magna cum laude with a 4.0.
Wow.
4.0, because I learned how to work. I learned that I would record the lectures and I'd come back to my apartment, I'd take notes and I would have to reteach myself and I'd have to do all these crazy things. But I figured out how to learn. I went on to write 2 books that were published. And how did I do that? I wrote every day. How did I graduate with straight A's? I worked every day. How did I go to the top of a company? Not once, not twice. Actually, took my husband's account to the top 3 times. I showed up and I worked every day. And all the things that I've done that I would, I guess, deem successful, really, I think it's a result of me having setbacks at a young age. And those really set me up for where I needed to go.
You know, when you talk, I can feel you really believe that, right? I mean, you believe it. You can feel your energy behind it, your passion behind it, you know, because we all can say the words. And I think most listeners to the show, we've all heard in various ways, well, you got to turn your obstacles into your opportunities, right? Or, you know, the world's not working to you, it's working for you, you know, and I'm a big believer, right, in these statements, but I've also learned not only through my personal journey, but just watching people through 23 years in this channel, that's easier said than done. It's easy to say the words, right? But it takes real inner work to actually believe in their truth. And so I'm curious for you, if you're willing to go deep there, was that always the case? Like back there when you were 10 and not able to read, or going through the challenges in your personal life or challenges in your business, did you always have that type of optimism? Or was there a specific point or period where you're like, you know what, I'm not going to play the victim. I'm going to use this as a setup. Or all of a sudden you realize, as you said, those setbacks became your setups. Like, talk to us about where you made that shift, where that became more than just words. It actually became a deep-rooted belief.
Yeah, I actually can almost think of one of the moments I decided, I'm making a change. And so, no, growing up, I guess you could say maybe it was poor me, although I didn't express that. I think in class I might act out, try to be funny, talk a lot. You know, you want to take the attention away. I want to take the attention away from me not being a great student to other things. But I remember going to college my freshman year and thinking, okay, I got through high school. Now I'm going to college. And I don't know how I'm going to do this because I still, you know, I would get the extra time on tests and SATs and all of that. But I was just sitting there going, okay, college day 1. And this is back, and I'm aging myself, but the professor, it was a biology class, had I don't even know what you call those. It was like a projector, like pre-PowerPoint, right? Like a projector where he would write stuff on, but it was a projector. And he had written down what an A student looks like. And it was all the adjectives describing an A student. They're hardworking, you know, they show up, they're diligent, and just these adjectives describing an A student. And then it was like a B student and a C student and a D student and an F student. And I sat there and went, everything about an A student. That is what I want to be. I want to be someone that shows up. I want to be someone that gives my all. And it was kind of that moment that a light bulb went off and I thought, I can do it. I might have to work harder, but why not me? Why can't I? You know, and I even thought back of like Helen Keller. I'm like, she was blind and deaf, went on to speak and to do all these incredible things. And you can look around at so many people that had it even harder than you, that had, you know, even more things that disqualified them, yet they did it. And that actually, in that muggy college classroom, I decided I was going to be an A student, and I didn't care how hard I had to work. So for me, it was kind of a silly moment, Blake, but it was when a light bulb went off and I said, why not me? And I guess that's what I would say to you is, why not you? Instead of letting your excuses or your setbacks be a reason not to, say, no, these are the reasons why. I want to show every little girl or every little boy that's dyslexic that they can do it. Reading might be hard, but who says you can't go on to write a book one day? You can. Why not you?
I love it. And there's no silly moment, right? Wherever we get that inspiration, whatever moment that is in that circumstance that allows us to make that mental shift, like, it changes everything. And what I love is it can happen anytime, anywhere, and we can make that shift and then ultimately see where that can go. So fast forward, obviously you've built a massive team multiple times. It's hard enough to hit the top of a rewards plan once, let alone multiple times and multiple accounts. I'm curious, that mindset, right? So that mindset that started there in that muggy classroom. Fast forward, can you tell us
Yeah.
maybe some of the struggles or challenging moments through your business? I'm sure it hasn't been just an absolute, right, rocket ship straight up. I'm sure there's been ups and downs, peaks and valleys. Give us some examples of maybe in your journey where you had to go back on that mindset to get you over certain setbacks that maybe others are experiencing or will experience.
Okay, so I'll tell you. And there's four things that I always had to do. And I always had to kind of actually even re-go there. And so during the beginning of my business, I was kind of all or nothing. So I guess that's like a little pre-tip. That's not one of the four things, but that's the pre-tip. I just said, I'm going to go all in, because no matter what you do in life, you've just got to go all in. You've got to go all in. Like, you can't stick in your big toe. You have to jump in the pool and say, I'm doing this, or you never know what you could have done, right? If I halfway did it, I wouldn't know, could I really be successful? Maybe you went all in at the beginning and then times passed and you've gotten a little burnt out, or you're a little, so now you're only given, that's why you're not seeing the success you did. That's not why you're seeing the fruits of your labor right now. So I would say definitely you have to go all in. So once I decided I'm going all in, there was no looking back. I decided I was doing this for me. I was doing this for my family. I didn't care what anybody else thought. And then as time went on, I was doing this for my team and for their families. And so I always had to remember that. But whenever I set a goal, I knew there was going to be trials and I knew there was going to be things that would knock me down. But I remember having these four things when I was praying that I really felt like the Lord spoke to my heart. And he said, you have to see it, you have to believe it, you have to pray for it, and then you have to work for it. And those four things through the 10 years as I was building, I always went back to them. Number one, I had to see where I wanted to go. I had to have vision. Helen Keller said the only thing worse than not having sight is having sight with no vision. So you have to have vision. So I saw myself reaching the top of the company before I ever did. I saw myself hitting that first promotion long before I ever did. I had to first see it. And I would challenge you, what is that goal right now? What is that next rank you want to hit? What's that next goal you want to achieve? Number one, you have to see it. And I would even take it a step further and I would speak it out loud. I would write it down. Anytime you went in my bathroom with dry erase marker, I had my goals on the mirror, and I had to see them first. And then the second thing I had to do after I saw it is I had to believe that I could do it. I had to have that belief. And I think they say it's the 8 inches, 6 inches between your ears. That is the biggest battlefield. You are your own worst critic. Your mind will get in the way, and you have to take those negative thoughts captive and you have to replace them with the truth. The negative thought comes in, I'm not going there. Replace it with the truth. And for me, my belief came from my faith and knowing I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, knowing that greater is he that is in me than he that's in the world, that my God's power is made perfect in my weakness, because when I'm weak, he's strong. And so I had that belief, but even my faith gave me belief, but then also I would look around. And I would always pause to look around, not to compare myself with other people, but actually to get inspired. You always hear people say, stay in your own lane, put your head down. Actually, I want to stay in my own lane, and then I want to lift my head up, and I want to see who else is winning, and I want to gather inspiration from them. And so I would get belief saying, there's people going to the top of the company. There's people hitting ranks. There's people doing all these things. Why not me? And I would say that to you. Why not you? If other people are doing it, stop counting yourself out. So I had to see, I had to believe, and then I would pray because prayer moves the hand of God. And so I knew I had to get to the end of me before I got to the beginning of him. So I was a firm believer in surrendering my business to the Lord and praying for it. And then lastly, I had to see, believe, pray. And then I had to show up and I had to work for it. And that was hard because I couldn't just work for it the days I felt like it. I had to work for it the days I didn't feel like it. And I had to work based on what I wanted, not even how things looked. It was like, no, I know what I want. I'm going to work for it. I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to show up. And that is how I stayed the course. That is how I reached success. That is how, when I fell down, when I missed a goal, I got back up. I said, okay, time to restart. I have to see, believe, pray, and then put in the work. And that really, I would call that the secret to my success. Like that is literally what I did in this business, but I do this with everything in my life.
What I love about that is it's simple, and it's something
Mm-hmm.
every single one of us listening right now can do, right? So I wrote it down as you were talking: see it, believe it, pray for it, work for it. And you guys, SheriLynn, she just gave you a direct task, right? So that's not a hypothetical. I heard a literal. What is at least one thing, one goal you have right now? You got to start there, right? So if you're listening right now, pause and think, what is the one thing? And then just follow the framework that SheriLynn just gave. You got to see it. And she gave you very specific, right? See it, write it down, put it on the mirror, journal it. You got to continue to see it until you actually can see it. It goes from fuzzy in your mind to clear, and then believe it. I love the way you said, SheriLynn, too, that you're looking outside for inspiration, because so often today we fall into this comparison game, and we look outside and see others that are a couple steps ahead of us, and all of a sudden we're comparing their chapter 20 to our chapter 2, and it's having an inverse effect. So I love that you called out that you're drawing inspiration, because if somebody else can do it, you can do it. It's possibility, right? Not comparison. So I think that was huge. Pray for it, right? Faith-based. And work. You got to do the work. You got to do the work. So thank you for that framework. It's simple. We can all apply that. And I hope if you're listening right now, you can apply that immediately to at least one thing in your business. You've mentioned your spouse a couple times. I know you guys are an amazing dynamic. And I'm just curious, building with a spouse where you both are engaged in the business, what advice do you have? What tips do you have? Maybe what are some of the learnings you guys had to figure out, like, being in a relationship and also being in a partnership? Like, any perspective or guidance there, because it seems like the two of you have done it really effectively.
Yes. So, I mean, I feel like I can say we're not pros, but we learned through our mistakes. We learned through our mistakes. We began this business really together, and we had 2 babies. I had 2 little girls in diapers, and now here we are with 3 active kids. My kids are all in competitive sports. And so I would say number 1, communication. You have to communicate. And even early on, when I was building the business, and like I said, I was all in, and I'm assuming you can tell by now, I'm kind of an all or nothing person, full of energy. It's very hard for me to turn off. Even now on the corporate side, this past weekend, my husband had to tell me on a Saturday to stop talking to him about work, because normal people turn off sometimes. I was like, huh, they do? Okay. Well, anyways. And so he's like, and don't start messaging other corporate staff, employees, executives. They need a Saturday. I'm like, okay, sorry. But communicating. And early on, I remember sharing my goals with my husband and explaining why I was working as hard as I was working. I had to tell him, hey, there's this goal I'm trying to go after. It's going to be hard, but I want you to know I'm going to need you to help me and do bedtime and bath time for the girls, and I would communicate and share them with him. I think so many times women, especially because, we're like, this is our job. We have to do all the kids, and we have to, do all these things. And so we just try to shoulder it. But you have a partner. If you're married, you have a partner. Let them be a part of it. So I think the best thing I ever did was, number 1, I communicated with John, and we talked about things. And then the second thing is, I made him a part of it. Instead of trying to be like, this is my thing, and I would make him a part of it. I mean, and he loved that. And things that I wasn't that great at, like reports and back office things, a lot of, leaders, that, and running reports, I knew this is not my strength. I'm married to a guy with a math degree that trade stocks on Wall Street, and he loved that I was including him. And he learned that and became like a pro. Like, he knew everything you could possibly do in the back office. But, and you might be on here like, my husband wouldn't be interested in that, but there's something I bet he would be. So I would say, number 1, always communicate your goals. If I was ever going for a promotion, I knew that month was going to look a little different than a normal month. That month, I was going to be getting up earlier. I was going to be staying up later. I was going to need more help, but we communicated. And I would even go on to say, include your kids. I actually have a video of when I hit, you could go to the top of our company and then you could get a second account, take that account to the top. And there had only been 2 people to ever do it. So I believe I was the 3rd or 4th person to do it in the history. And I had a thermometer that I would keep track of as we were getting closer. And my little girls, so not only was my husband involved, my girls, they were so excited, and they stayed the night at my mom's house the night before I knew it was month end. It was going to happen this night. And I was hoping, and we were doing all the team power hours and work sessions and all the things. And my husband recorded when my 2 daughters came back in the house. I'm trying to remember how old they would have been at the time. This would have been like that 2020-ish time. Okay. So whatever that is, maybe they were 8 and 9, I don't know. And so, or 7 and 8, and they came in the house and I held up the thermometer fully covered in. And my 9-year-old, or she was 8 or 9, started sobbing tears of joy because she was praying for it. She was a part of it. So I would say, yes, communicate to your spouse. Yes, make them a part of it. But let me also add in your kids, make them a part of it, because when you do that, because this business, this channel, it really is a thing that takes your whole family to be on board with. And so I loved always making my husband a part of it, but then even my kiddos.
I think that's amazing. You just gave me a visual of like the thermometer in the kitchen and
I'm going to send you the video.
you got to send it. I got to see it and I bet the feeling you had in that moment as, mom and leader and all the things all at once, is the best feeling you could ultimately have. I think that's an amazing tip. I love the visual thermometer. I love making sure your kids are a part of it. It turns them into not only cheerleaders, but talk about the highest form of accountability. Like the highest form of accountability is you're telling your kids your dreams and your goals, and they're cheering you on. You don't want to let your kids down. I think that's an amazing suggestion. I hope a lot of the listeners take you up on that. And I love that you're doing it as a family. I know this is a question that I'm sure you get asked all the time. I know I do. I'm just curious if you have any other tips around just that time management, that life management, right? We all go through it. So you're mom of 3, your whole, you're John and yourself are building together. You're managing all the sports and all the things and all the schools, and you got all of it. Is there any like practical tips or guardrails or boundaries you've learned whether it be calendaring or scheduling or turning on and off? I'm just curious, like simple practical tips to like keep the main thing.
I can give you 2. Okay. So, and I feel like I'm going to give you one for maybe the person that's struggling to make time for their business. Okay. I'll do that one first. And then the person that's struggling to turn off. Okay. Cause there's 2 groups always, like, so those of you that are like, man, I'm just struggling, all the things. I know for me, summers were always extra hard. All the kids home or holidays when everyone's home. And well, actually, I could go back to the beginning of my business. They weren't even in school yet. So I've gone through all the seasons. And what I've learned is anytime someone's like, send me your schedule, I'm like, oh, I can't do that because my schedule is going to look different than your schedule. And the one thing I always did is I'm kind of old school. And yes, I know all the outlooks and the family Google calendars, and John adds me on all those things. But I also have a paper calendar because I like to write it all out. And then poor John's taking photos of my calendar to upload in the Google family thing that I'm supposed to be adding things onto. But I'm like, listen, that feels really hard. And I don't know, I like my paper. But with that said, even early on, every night, after I got my kids to bed, I looked at the next day and I always I knew I needed like a 3-hour chunk to work my business. Even when I first started, you're like, I don't have 3 hours. I felt like I didn't have 3 hours either, but I knew if I wanted this to eventually pay me like a business, I had to work it like a business. And that was like the minimal I could give it. And I always set and maybe you call it a power hour. I don't know what you call it, what different companies call it, but whatever that is, my work chunk, I would figure out when it is. And maybe it's an hour here, an hour there, an hour there, but I would always write it into my calendar because every day looked a little different. With babies, it looked different. Then I ended up being pregnant with a 3rd child. And guess what? When I had my 3rd baby and a newborn, my work schedule looked a little bit different than that period. I had my 2 girls at school, and no matter what, every night I would pick when was my work chunk. And no, I didn't run errands during my work chunk. No, I didn't even go to lunch with people from my team during my work chunk. That was extra because I knew if I didn't have that non-negotiable time of income producing tasks that I had to do with my follow-up and reaching out, to new prospects and checking in on my customer and all the things that were on my non-negotiable list, I wasn't going to be successful. So I would tell you, I know your life might be crazier than I can possibly imagine, but if you want this to work every night, when is your time going to be? And it's okay if every day is a little bit different, but you've got to find the time. And so for me, that was just crucial. And I did that my entire time, building in the field. I always set my time. And listen, when I was a leader, I was spending more than 3 hours a day, but I knew where my time was going and I knew where that non-negotiable time was. And with my time, I always knew a third of my time had to be me doing what I needed to do to grow my list, to sign new customers, to sign new business partners. I knew a third of my time needed to be launching those. Duplication is essential in this industry. Like you can sign people, but if they never go on to be successful, if you don't duplicate what you've done, what's the point? So I had to bring in the new, I had to duplicate, and then I had to work with my leaders because I knew that was the longevity of my business, those leaders. And so I always, knew what my tasks were. I always knew where my time was going. And then let me say to those of you that struggle and you're like, my marriage is on the rocks. I work nonstop. Okay, I've been there too. And I had to reel it back in, And for those of you, I would say, be sure to set your blackout time. And I'll never forget, and I'll share this. It was my first year in my business. John and I communicated. I was like all or nothing, and I was going for it. And I'll never forget being at dinner. And my girls were little at the table. John worked, 9 to 5, got home, and I'm sitting there with my phone like this, and I'm looking down, and he was just staring at my forehead, probably like he was doing every night. And I remember him saying, SheriLynn, could we just have maybe blackout time for dinner? And I thought, oh no. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And I sat my phone down. And I thought, how many dinners? And luckily that was early on in my business. That was my first year as I was just, running. But when he said that, we call it blackout time, and we would set blackout time. Family dinner, always blackout time. As my kids got older, getting them ready for school in the mornings, I am there. That is blackout time. From when I pick them up from school to take them to their activities, because that was always important to me, I'm not on my phone. That's blackout time. I'm watching my son play soccer. If you're a guest and you come to our house and we have dinner and you pull out your phone, my 5-year-old son will be like, no phones at the table. We don't do phones at dinner, because I had to set blackout time. So I would say, number one, know where your time's going. But then I would also say, have your blackout time.
Simple, practical, but effective. And what I'm hearing you say, SheriLynn, it's like wherever you're choosing to be there. If you're choosing to work your business, you're working your business. You're not doing other things. And if you're choosing to be at dinner with your family, all of you is there at dinner with your family. So thank you for that. I know it's a simple question, but it's one that I think everybody, if we're honest, we all struggle with today. How do we get distraction out of the way so we can focus when we need to focus, but also how can we show up the way we want to show up as significant others or spouses or wives or husbands or fathers or moms and all of the things. And I also love that for those listening carefully, she gave some magic on the calendar, right? So it might start off with that power hour of prospecting and doing all of your income generating activities and new conversations. But as you build a team, I heard SheriLynn say 3 things eventually. You got the prospecting, the recruiting, the attraction, third of the time, duplicating, helping your new people accelerate, kind of a third of the time, and then eventually leading your leaders. I think that was a simple little nuance that those that are building teams can apply and get in those calendars, whether it's paper or digital or Google. You mentioned real quick, you made a transition, right? Started this year. Congratulations on the new role, head of field and strategy, right, for your company. I'm curious, you were in the field for a decade, built to the top, enormous success, right? You and John had an amazing dynamic going. You made the leap now to help the company go to a new level. I'm curious if there's been any new perspective you have gained now seeing the other side of the curtain, right? So now the other side of the curtain, is there any new perspective that you didn't have before now that you're on the corp side that you feel might be of value to kind of bridge or share with a global distributor community here? 10 years on the field side, almost a year now on the corporate side. What's a new perspective, a new lesson you feel is worth all the distributors in the world hearing?
I do think one thing that makes my situation unique is I speak both field and I speak both corporate language. I speak both the languages now. I didn't before. And what I've learned, gosh, so many things, Blake, so many things. I think one of them is that a lot of times there could be disconnect between the field and corporate, you know? And so I would say if you're in the field, don't be bashful, especially leaders. Speak up, say those things that you need, because a lot of times the corporate team, they just don't realize it. Okay. Or if you're speaking up and you're like, I'm being loud and clear, they're not listening. You might not understand some things, because you've got to have a healthy corporate in order to be a healthy field. So there might be things you want, but that just doesn't make sense. And so you've got to have a healthy field. You have to have a healthy corporate. But I would say, I think it's really awesome when companies bring their field in, when they listen to their field, because at the end of the day, we're all going for the same thing. We want to change lives. We want to change lives, with products. We want to change lives with a business opportunity. We all want the same thing. It's the same goal we have. It's just two different ways of doing it. And so I think I was really mind blown by seeing how much it takes on the corporate side to bring something to the field. I thought it was just like the snap of the finger, like, we need a new product, get us a new product. But then I didn't realize, all these things. And is this product in all the countries? And and the legal things and translations. I didn't even know we had translations. I built a US team. I didn't realize they had to go through all these things, and so I feel like now as a field leader, I would have had a lot more grace for the corporate team now that I see everything that they do. Man, they do a lot. They do a lot, and it's not as easy to just whip something out as I thought it was. It's not as easy just to give the field something as I thought it was. And so, I love both sides, and I think, man, they are so much better together. They're better together. It's the same goal, same vision, but sometimes they speak different languages. And so, field, don't be scared to speak up and advocate for yourself, but also have grace for your corporate team, because I guarantee you do not know everything that it takes to bring stuff to you. Because I know I sure didn't, even as a top leader.
I know that's a real and honest message, and I'm sitting here smirking since I think 23 years for me, and I've been on both sides, all sides of the fence, and that's the truth. What you're saying is the truth. So give grace, right? Give grace, seek to understand, but communicate, because sometimes just out of sight, out of mind, or people don't understand, right? So, I think the core of what I'm hearing you say is it's never about a they and us, regardless of what lens you're looking for, right? It's always about a we. It's always a we. A company is not a corporate in a field. A company is a group of people, and a group of people showing up, playing individual roles that make the movement happen. So I think no matter what quote unquote role you're in right now, it always is one team, one group with similar missions and intentions and visions, and everybody's got to show up and play their role to the best of their ability to accomplish the ultimate potential. So thank you for sharing that, and I know that's truth. And grace goes a long way on all the sides when you're a part of any team trying to accomplish something extraordinary. So thank you for that perspective. Direct selling shift. It's about shifts, and I know you were just at DSU. We've been plugging in for a couple years. There's no secret that our channel and the world, not just direct selling, but really the world right now, is in a season of shift. There's a lot of evolution. There's a lot of things happening rapidly right now. From your vantage point, 10 years in the field, top earner, now also wearing a corporate hat, seeing both sides. What shifts are you seeing right now from your vantage point in this business? And what guidance are you giving to all of us on how we continue to adapt so we can thrive through the season we're in right now?
Well, Gosh, I have a few thoughts. I was actually going to jot down a few because I'm like, oh, so much comes to my mind. Number one, I think that we're at a time where everybody is looking for supplemental income. Everybody. I mean, I can only speak to Texas where I live, but the interest rates are crazy on, on homes. And just, I mean, I feel like no matter where you live, it's just everybody's looking for additional income. And that is such a win for us. That is such a win for this channel, that people are looking for ways to make extra income. So I would say that. And then I would also say, I feel like now more than ever, people are open to so much more. We live in this like affiliate marketing time where everybody and their mom is an influencer. And I mean, I heard my 10-year-old putting on or doing her, okay, in case you don't know this, Blake, you're going to learn this soon. 10-year-old girls are really into skincare. I was like, do you even have pores yet, Juliana? But they want all the skincare, all the things. Sephora. I'm like, what? You do not need under eye anything. You have nothing. You were just born. You just came from my womb. You were 10. But anyways, they're into, and she was recording herself on, she doesn't have a phone, but she had my phone and turned on video and was recording herself explaining her skincare routine like she's an influencer. And I'm like, this is from you watching things like I'm watching. Like, this is hilarious. But people it's like this influencer, affiliate marketing, all the things. So people are open to ways to make extra income. 10 years ago, it was kind of like, oh, they're posting about a product on their social media. Now everybody's posting about a product. Your favorite influencer blogger is posting like 500 products in her stories. Like, it is okay now to do social selling. And that's crazy. And I used to always hear a saying that said, nobody wants to be sold to, but everyone wants to buy. And I would literally be like, I don't believe that anymore. Now I think everyone wants to be sold to, because that's what people do with like it to know it and all the things. So how awesome for us that the world is looking for everyone, no matter how old they are, I don't care their gender, wants a way to make extra income. And that now it's like socially acceptable. You can share your products and what you have to offer unashamedly. And so I think that's pretty awesome for our channel.
I love that you just said that. And you are 100% spot on both of those statements. Don't get lost in the semantics. And I know sometimes in this channel, we hear a word like affiliate and we attach our own meaning to that, right? Or because we all use different nomenclature, whether we call each other affiliates or consultants or promoters or distributors or representatives or IBOs or influencers or ambassadors, or it's all the same thing. It's different nomenclature, different names, different brands. And whatever model we decide to say we're in, we had a hard time, SheriLynn, naming this show because we know direct selling as a term is in a state of shift, and we all call our models different things. But what you're hearing SheriLynn say, and get this, we are in a time where what we do is being normalized. It's being mainstreamed, where the biggest brands in the world are realizing that people sharing, consumers who use and love the product or service, sharing their experience with their network, generally on social media, is not only a viable business model, it is now the preferred means of marketing and distribution in the world today. And we're at the epicenter of it. We're at the epicenter of it. So thank you for saying that. I share the same belief. My son is 8, and he'll grab my phone and record a video about whatever he's recording the video. And as he's recording, he's like, don't forget to like and subscribe. I think he usually says it incorrectly, like and subscribe. He watches all of this on YouTube. It is the generation that we're in. It is normal. It is mainstreaming. And I love that you said it's not just that the consumer is now recognizing that as normal, and that businesses and brands are now preferring this as a growth channel. But you made a really strong point that right now in the season, extra income means something, right? An extra $500,000, a couple $1,000s a month, that means something, right? An extra couple $100 can mean Christmas or not Christmas, or a better Christmas for families, right? Or Hanukkah as an example. So we're in a perfect convergence of a need and then a model that's becoming normalized and mainstreamed. And so many of us right now that are at the middle that can bring this opportunity as a gift to the world. So thank you for highlighting that. I share your opinion. It is a super exciting time. I want to leave some time for some closing thoughts and be respectful. You've been amazing. I love that we're getting so much value on both the mindset and your story and practical application of our calendar and how to balance the parent and leader thing. So thank you for all of this. Let's do a quick rapid fire round. So these are just 3 questions. First thing that comes to your mind, there's no right or wrong answer, right? In a few short sentences, right? It can be one sentence, it could be a couple short sentences, but just kind of the first thing that comes to your mind or your heart, kind of carrying forward this theme of shifts, right? So we've talked a lot already in just our dialogue today about your belief system, your mindset shifts. I'm curious, if you look at SheriLynn today, right, where you're at today, everything you have going on today, and you were to look back on your journey, what is the single largest mindset shift, the story you went from telling yourself one thing to telling yourself something else, that you think has contributed to where you're at today?
I think probably that I did have long-term vision. I had long-term vision, and that kept me from quitting early on. You have to have that long-term vision of where you want to go, even when it seems so far away. And I think that was super instrumental to me getting here. Is I saw, even though it seemed so far away, I had that vision for that. So it kept me wanting to go, even if it was like me hobbling, along. I kept on going.
What is long-term to you, just as a follow-up there? I'm just curious.
So for me, and I'm like, my long-term vision was like where I want to be in like 5 years. Like that was considered long to me, because I would always set like a monthly goal. And then I felt like, just as I was building, having like 3 months out, like that 90 days, so much could happen in 90 days, just so much. And so I would have monthly goal, 90-day goal. Where do I want to be in a year? And then for me, like putting myself 5 years out was long-term.
No, it's perfect. I was just curious. I mean, I think I heard someone once say that we often dramatically overestimate what we can do in like a day, a week, a month, but we also dramatically underestimate what we can do over 5 years. So I love that kind of a 5-year goal. So next question. So same concept of shifts. If you were to give the most important mindset or perspective shift to a brand new distributor getting started today, they listen to this, they're excited, right? They're ready to go. They want to, follow in your example, and you're here to give them one perspective shift that matters most for a brand new person. What would it be?
So I would tell them to only listen to people that they aspire to be like. I remember hearing critics say things of, oh, that type of business model won't last. Even having a family member unfollow me and say something, a really good friend making a remark. But as I looked, I'm like, those aren't people I'm aspiring to be like. So I would say only listen to those who you're aspiring to be like. Fill yourself up with speakers and podcasts and things of people that you're like, man, I want to be like them. That is what you need to fill yourself with.
Powerful insight. I like it. Okay, so last one. This is kind of a visionary question. I think you'll like this because I get the idea. You like the long term, the vision, kind of a little bit of idealistic. As I think about the power of our channel, right? And I don't know how many companies and brands and products or services, but I know it's massive, And if we were somehow to like harness the power of every distributor, affiliate, consultant, whatever we call ourselves, across every company, every brand, across every country and every culture and every language around the world, man, that would be a powerful movement. So if you had the power to like snap your fingers and give every single distributor in this channel right now a single mindset shift, a single belief that all of us were to adopt, what would you give them?
I would say that right now, perhaps the position you're in, rather than being a hindrance or a disadvantage, is actually your starting line. Stop thinking that it's something holding you back and say, no, I'm supposed to start right now. I'm going to go after what is on my heart. I'm going to go after those dreams I have. I'm going to go after that vision. And I would say, just start. Stop saying it's a hindrance. Stop saying it's a disadvantage. It's your starting line. So just start.
Beautiful. I love it. I want to get your closing thoughts here. If there's anything we didn't cover, anything that you feel you want to dive deeper on before we kind of round out. I mean, this has already been such an inspiring conversation covering so much ground, mindset, right? How we can overcome what we go through, how our setbacks can be our setups. And that's not just language or words. That can be a belief. The things that we go through define us and make us who we are. And even when you're in that moment, you might not realize it. It's actually giving you exactly what you need to become who you're capable of. And SheriLynn Story has shown us, right, through her own testimony, that is the case. I love the framework you gave us because it's simple. We can apply it. I got to see it. I got to believe it. I got to pray for it. I got to work for it. Those are things I can use to apply everything that I'm in right now, navigating this business as a spouse, as a family, as a mom, as a dad, the simple practical calendar tools. I'm going to, apply some of those in my own life, giving grace to our company, regardless of where we're at. It's we, it's not us, it's not them. We're together in the same movement. Some powerful shifts. Anything you want to dive deeper on, anything you want to leave us with, any other kind of closing thoughts before we round out today's conversation?
I would probably just say stop listening to any of those lies that have been going through your mind. You're not too old. You're not too young. You're not too busy. Your best days aren't behind you. You were not a one-hit wonder. You were created right now for such a time as this. You are where you need to be to just start. You can do it. I always have the saying, you can do hard things. You've got this. You can do it.
You are an inspiring example that what you just said is real, is possible, and we can do it. And I felt that. And I know if you're listening, you felt that. SheriLynn, thank you for everything you're doing for this channel. Thank you for being an inspiring example. Thank you for showing us that we can become more than we are and everything that we want to be just by putting in the work. And putting ourselves to the side and making an impact, right, for the people that we care about. So we appreciate you and your time today away from family, team, business, company, all the things to add value. And you guys, I know there was something today that resonated. There was something you heard that was meant for you. There was something you can grab right now and apply right now to move you forward. And if that's the case, let us know. The only reason we're here doing this is to serve at a different level. A rising tide raises all ships, and we want to raise the tide across the channel. So let us know. Drop by Apple Podcast. If you're not following the show, follow the show, but leave us a review with what you got from today's conversation, so we can continue to adapt and serve in a great way. And beyond you getting a shift, because I know there's a lot that we can grab from today's conversation, what I love is a shift is also a gift. And there's something in today's conversation that might help others that you're in touch with. So share DSN, all of the social media. There's little clips you can share to make it easy. If you do so, tag DSN so DSN can see that you're helping spread the word. We appreciate you. But share on Apple Podcasts, share on YouTube, whatever platform is your preference, to anybody you know right now that is building a direct selling business, whether they just got started, they're navigating the season of shift, they want to lead at a higher level. We want to make an impact in helping us get the word out. We appreciate. And if you do so, drop by directsellingshift.com. That's the show website. Let us know you shared. You can get access to some really cool tools. We got our AI Edge. You can also nominate potential future guests or topics. So help us get better. Help us serve you. Drop by the website down at the bottom. You can nominate. And SheriLynn, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom and insight. Congratulations on everything you guys have going on. And thank you for just the energy and the spirit you poured into us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.